Welcome to Success is in Our DNA, today's session of the Rutgers Business School Signature Leadership Series. Today's webinar is offered in valued partnership with Tech United NJ, and we thank them for their support. The Rutgers Business School Signature Leadership Series is a new learning opportunity that brings our audience lessons of resilience, resourcefulness, responsibility, and reinvention through conversations with thought leaders and business leaders from across industry spectrums. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about our moderator before handing things off to today's presenter. Alfred Blake is the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Entrepreneurship Programs at Rutgers Business School, the founder of Rutgers Entrepreneurial Academy of Leadership, and the founder of Rutgers University's Entrepreneurship Living Learning Community. He's also the chapter director of Startup Grind and the president and founder of I Am Multi. Alfred is a sought-after speaker and writer on the topics of higher education, unique perspectives, and entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. He is also the co-author of Super Sister Skylar, a book series that he has authored with his adorable daughter, Skylar. Alfred earned his bachelor's degree from Oakwood University. Around the halls of Rutgers Business School, Alfred is known for his friendly demeanor and for rocking bow ties, just like he is today. Now I would like to introduce our presenter. John Harmon is the founder, president, and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. He establishes, implements, and executes the mission and has fiduciary oversight and governance of AACCNJ. John also works to identify strategic partnerships to connect members and supporters to resources and opportunities. He serves as an advocate for the 1.1 million African American residents and over 70,000 Black-owned businesses in New Jersey to ensure that policy at all levels provides fairness, equity, and access in the marketplace. John previously served the Metropolitan Trenton African American Chamber of Commerce and the National Black Chamber of Commerce. Prior to his career as a chamber executive, John was previously employed in banking. He also founded a transportation company called Harmon Transfer Corp. John earned his associate's and bachelor's degrees in New Jersey and completed additional studies at the University of Wisconsin and Villanova University. And with that, John, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret. I'm extremely excited to be a part of today's program. I'm also delighted to be a part of the board for the Business School of Rutgers. Are you? It's just, I can't tell you how proud and excited just to be a part of this conversation today. And it's my hope that what I share with the audience today, that it may have some positive impact on their lives, on their career, on their journey. A little bit about the African American Chamber of Commerce. We're here to contribute to your success, and we encourage those who might be interested in being a member or a supporter or volunteer with the African American Chamber of Commerce, New Jersey, let us know. Next. Our mission basically is about free enterprise and capitalism. And it was President Obama who said no one is successful by themselves. So we work very closely with the National Black Chamber of Commerce, the largest Black business association in the country, and also the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the largest business federation in the world. And working in partnership with these two groups, we get a diverse perspective on business, and we're able to share that with our members and our partners here in our great state of New Jersey. Next. We have over 800 members that are part of the chamber, and we work very closely, as I said earlier, to connect them with resources, opportunities, and information, ultimately to contribute to their success. Does that mean, it means advocacy as it relates to regulation, public policy, fostering strategic alliances with New Jersey's corporations, with our financial services institutions, with municipal, county, and state government, as well as federal government. At the end of the day, my staff and I work very hard to ensure that our members are positioned to be as successful as possible in the marketplace. Next. Our value proposition, we work very closely with small businesses, with corporations and government. You know, as I said, accessing opportunities, meeting facilitation, hosting educational forums and networking events. At the end of the day, it's not all about who you know, but who knows you. We work very closely with corporations around supplier diversity, the board recruitment, corporate citizenship investment, training, et cetera, et cetera. And then lastly, public policy is so important as it relates to businesses to make sure that, you know, we're not over-regulated. In New Jersey, we have some issues around regulation and taxation. There's a lot of federal laws that came into being with the Civil Rights Act. For instance, HUD Section 3 has to do a lot with monies that come into public housing into many communities around the state to ensure that those members of those communities have access to opportunities. And Title VI is similarly as it relates to procurement and transportation, highways, bridges, roadways, et cetera. Next. We have a series of upcoming events. We encourage you to go to our website at AACCNJ.com, our Business Leadership Conference. It's kind of a 2-day event. On the 21st of September, we do an evening mixer to kind of get folks in the mood to do more networking on the next day, on the 22nd. And this is going to take place at the Palace in Somerset. We have representatives from Johnson & Johnson, PSC&G, Metropolitan Transportation Authority out of New York, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Horizon, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, a ton of folks. Also on the 28th of this month, we're doing an event in partnership with Horizon, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, all about health and the various coverage that are available for small businesses. Also talking about the implications and the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next. Our corporate awards event. This is the event where we recognize corporations and small businesses for their work with the chamber. Hackensack Meridian is on tap to be recognized. Their president, Bob Garrett. I've been privileged to serve on the board of directors for Hackensack Meridian Health. Then John Keller, who's head of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, another great partner of the chamber. And we've done some great things with the New Jersey Turnpike Authority and 3 small businesses in the state that we work very closely with as well. In addition, we've partnered with the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce on some diversity initiatives to really leverage diversity. And I believe if you leverage diversity in the appropriate way, it should derive value. September 14th, we have an event coming up, September 23rd and October 6th. But all this information can be found at AACCNJ.com. And a number of these events are free. And I know students are on tight budgets, but we encourage you to come hang out with us. And if it gets a little expensive, give us a call. We may be able to work something out with you. Well, we'd love to have you in attendance. Next. And quarterly meeting tonight. It starts at 6 to 8 p.m. It's a free event, networking, and you're going to have a couple of businesses that are going to be making a presentation. This is our quarterly meeting. Again, another nice networking event. It's all about building relationships. In business, you never know who you need until you need it. But more importantly, get those relationships in place beforehand so you don't have to scramble at the last minute to line up with partners that's going to enable you to deliver on what you're trying to get done. And then lastly, September 30th, Cross River Bank up in Bergen County. We're going to be hosting an event in Fort Lee on September 30th from 6 to 8. Cross Rivers is a member of the chamber. They're hosting a networking event, free food, cordials, music, perfect environment for a budding entrepreneur like some of you that are on the program today, and some more seasoned. But again, it's free. Come hang out with us on the 30th of this month. I believe that's it. Yes. Okay, I was right.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, John, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Looking at all the different accomplishments that you have, the different career paths you've taken, I'm really curious to hear a little bit about your background, your upbringing, and how that may have affected where you are today.
Well, Alfred, thank you for the question. I'm born in the city of Trenton. I'm a New Jersey guy. I grew up on the street, row houses in the North Ward of Trenton, 18 Sanford Street to be exact. I'm one of 7 children. Neither of my parents completed high school. They both came from Virginia, migrated north. My dad's background was kind of farming. His grandfather was in the farming. And so they followed the potato season. And in New Jersey, we had a potato processing plant in Robbinsville, and my dad managed that 3 shifts, and later created a trucking business to transport those products. And my mom worked in a factory doing piecework. But I matriculated somehow to, as one of 7, the first to go to college. And I shared with you previously, Alfred, I kind of stumbled into college. I didn't go to college immediately. I wanted to be a mechanic. I like working with my hands on cars and trucks. And I went to Trenton High School, and ultimately I graduated from Trenton High and went hanging out in Mercer County Community College, playing basketball, and was kind of, summons to enroll and to become a student, and subsequently graduated there, went on to Fairleigh Dickinson, graduated there, and began working in banking in New York.
Love it, love it. So when in the description you just mentioned, you said a phrase that popped out to me. You said your father followed the potato season. So I think about a book that I read some time ago called Who Moved My Cheese? And with that, it's about finding new opportunity and following opportunity. So, throughout your career, it sounds like you followed opportunity. How would you suggest that students who are students or business owners, how should they follow the opportunity? How can they do it?
I think that's a great question. First and foremost, they have to look within themselves, and this might sound a little corny, but sometimes just get in a room, no one around. Whether you choose to look in the mirror or not, do a self-assessment of who you are and who you may desire to be. And really, what do you think, what are your strengths? What do you think are your deficiencies? And so if you define areas that you have some deficiency in, those are the areas I believe you should work on first. For me, I was pretty good in math, and but I was, I had difficulty writing. I could read, but I didn't write that well. And it bothered me. It sometimes, even in my latter stages of my college career, I struggled to put a paragraph together. But what I realized was that those things that if you don't deal with them now, they will revisit you somewhere down life and may create problems for you. So, I would look at the newspaper. I was a big fan of the New York Times, and I would kind of look at sections and paragraphs and try to mimic them or in my own way. I would watch, the TV news on Sunday, Face the Nation, Meet the Press, and hear how people articulated their messaging, how they responded to questions. And I met a woman from the Trenton Times who helped me become a better writer. And she said, one thing about you, you write from your heart. Just stay with that. And so similar in life, once you know what you have deficiency in, you work on it, it's easy to kind of align that with things that you do well. And I think sometimes people who desire to be successful in life are trying to please other folks and not themselves. At the end of the day, and not to say this in a selfish way, it's about you and about who you want to become and about who you want to be, how you want to represent yourself in society.
Powerful, powerful. So, I know that you have over 800 people who you service within the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major feat. With those 800 people you service, my question is, what are some of the roadblocks that the chamber faces and being able to provide service to them, but also to be able to break down some barriers that exist within the market?
That's an excellent question. I want to take it back a step or two. And this example I'm going to use, it may not be familiar to some people, but young folks have technology. They'll just Google and find out what I'm talking about. But, I've been in this chamber space going on 25 years next June. And I can recall when I began the process of founding this organization, it was around 2003, prior to which I was president of a regional chamber for 10 years, which spanned from 1999 to 2009. But I realized the need for a statewide organization to represent Black businesses. And so the example I want to use, many days I felt like the Maytag repairman. And what I mean by that, I sat in the office and the phone didn't ring. I didn't get any emails. I didn't get any text messages. And this did not just occur for a day or two. This went on for weeks. And at some point you begin to doubt that, are we on the right path of being successful here? And I would go to networking events with other business groups and folks would ask me, I would introduce myself over and over again. I'm 6'4", so I would think after 2-3 times you would know who I am. And then folks would ask me, why do we need a Black chamber? So we talked today, we have over 800 members, and most of which, 30% of those are non-Black businesses. So to the heart of your question, I think one of the big challenges that many Black businesses face is the perception that they are less than. There are things in society that kind of, one of these rooms, if I don't move, the light goes out. So we're marginalized by perceptions. So speaking to any business owner out there today, is you got to take that head on. And so organizationally, we have to take that on and push back on those adverse perceptions and say that we have men and women that have the wherewithal to compete in the marketplace if they're afforded a level playing field and the rules are clearly defined. And we find great success. Access to capital has been an enormous barrier over the years, but now we're strategically aligned with over 20 financial services institutions, including the New Jersey Economic Development Authority and New Jersey Community Capital. So when you see those barriers, you have to find resolutions and solutions to the barriers. You can't just talk about it. You got to be about advancing the mission. In your 4 R's, you talk about resilience, and perseverance. That kind of stems from that word. Those are all innate situations that we deal with as Black people in America, Black people in New Jersey, and running organizations that's looking to bring Black people who've been marginalized to some degree into the economic mainstream. And then lastly, just a level set. In New Jersey, we have about 1.2 million Black people and over 80,000 businesses. And probably with the most recent census, we're probably closer to 100,000. But nonetheless, we have the highest poverty, the highest unemployment, low median income. Black net worth is $5,900 versus $315,000 for whites. So those perceptions permeate throughout our society. So inherent in our culture, there are barriers. And so when you open up your mouth as a Black person or a Black business, automatically there's a perception that you have to dispel immediately. You either confirm it or you annihilate it once you start to articulate.
Got it. I love it. So let me ask you this. With that perception, my question is, how do you bring about change in mindset to parties that have a different perceived narrative and who may be ignorant to the value that you serve?
These are all phenomenal questions, and the title of today's talk is Success is in Our DNA. As a country, as a nation, we have a number of areas that we've been very successful in as a people. When you look at the most recent Olympics, and although they're represented participants from all over the world, a number of those athletes were educated in the United States. That speaks volumes to who we are collectively as a nation. But when you speak from a perspective of Blacks, and I use the term success or use the title Success is in Our DNA, it takes on a different meaning. Now, America is the melting pot. Folks came here, we all came here as immigrants. One group came here voluntarily looking to be successful. And my ancestors came here strapped to the bows of slave ships back in the 1600s. So immediately arrived in this country from two different vantage points. But within the context of that, we talk about resilience. Blacks endure slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, all the hardships that Black folks endure. But nonetheless, we're still here today. So if we want to talk about it from a business perspective, Booker T. Washington founded the Negro Business League in 1900s. 40 organizations between Maryland and Texas that really taught free enterprise and capitalism. The U.S. Chamber was founded in 1912, 12 years after the Booker T. Washington, and it was founded by President Taft. But Booker T. was an advisor to President Taft. So you can draw your own conclusion about that. You talk about Thomas Edison, you look at the light bulb, you say Thomas Edison created the light bulb, and people get really excited about that. And then I would say, yeah, but for Lewis Lattimore providing the filament for that light bulb would not have sustained itself and stayed on. That, in part, diversity and inclusion. Without including, you don't have that sustainability, you don't have the innovation, you don't have the excellence. So just take it a step further. This past summer, even up to now, we've had 90 to 100-degree days. We had a lot of people who died as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and their bodies had to be placed in trailers. They'd be maintained until the disposition of those bodies. 9/11, placed in trailers, but there was a man named Fred McKinley Jones that created the refrigeration system, okay? So refrigerated trailers, HVAC systems, AC, as we know it today. And then lastly, Benjamin Banneker laid out the streets for Washington, D.C. You talk about Garrett Morgan creating the gas mask and the traffic light. What I'm getting to is the heart of the perceptions of Black people, as if, we depend on entitlement resources. We haven't contributed anything to the greatness of this country. And I will point out that Robert Smalls and Frederick Douglass negotiated with President Lincoln to utilize slaves in the Civil War. And by leveraging 170,000 slaves, they won the war. And now we have these United States. And so you hear folks talking about make America great again. We may not have had in America to make great, but for Black people sacrificing their lives and their courage to bring forth a victory. So I know there was a lot, but so when people are having these adverse perceptions of Black people, we may have to go back historically to remind them how we've contributed to the greatness of this country. And football season is about to start. 70 to 80% of the athletes that make up the NFL are Black men that are making a difference. Yeah. And people are paying great sums to watch them on Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday.
Yeah, no, seriously, man, no, that powerful, man. So I have a question. One thing that stood out to me was contribution. And you talked earlier about the different pillars, some of the pillars that the chamber really is proud of. So you talked about advocacy, you talked about providing ways to have extra capital. My question is this, and I hear it, in you, and when you talk, your excitement and your passion. So, what excites you most about the contribution of the chamber within the economy?
Well, I tell you, there's so much to be excited about. As of today, we're still the only accredited chamber of commerce in New Jersey with the U.S. Chamber. There's over 141 chambers. And so, again, I'm standing in the context of those perceptions. We came into this arena back in 2007 and just competed with folks that have been doing this 50 or 100 plus years. And we are accredited with the leading business federation in the world. To have that accreditation means a lot to me. To have a number of New Jersey's greatest corporations be strategically aligned with us on issues of supplier diversity, HR diversity, corporate citizenship investment is significant. To have the financial services institutions align with us, providing capital, access to capital for our members. And then, I think in some relationships matter. I'm proud to say today, I'm no longer like the Maytag repairman. We have more phone calls than we could take, more emails than we could take. And we have about 14 employees. So it speaks to our perseverance, our success, but we're not resting on our laurels, because at the end of the day, it's about making a difference in New Jersey. And so when you talk about business in New Jersey, the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey is also mentioned along with the other institutions that do great work in the state. So I would underscore that to say that's, in sum, I'm proud of all those areas.
Love it. And on the flyers that were in the beginning of your presentation, it's evident that those relationships are there, that the impact is there, because great people want to be around other great people. So proof is in the pudding. So one of my beliefs is that one thing that is a part of great leaders is great curiosity. It's the ability to ask questions. It's the ability to challenge status quo. It's the ability to look to find out what you can do. So my question is, what were you curious about when you entered into the world of the Chamber of Commerce? And for the second part of that question, or you can choose which one you want to answer, what are you curious about now outside of the Chamber?
Those are great questions, and I'm going to try to shorten my answers because there's so much we can cover today if I don't get long-winded in some of my responses. But I can recall being in a meeting, invited to a meeting with Governor McGreevey back, I think 2004, give or take. And we're at the governor's mansion around the table. And according to my schedule, I was supposed to be there, let's say for a 1 o'clock meeting. I was there at 12:30. And when I got in the room, people were already around the table. And so either I had the wrong time or they had something else going on and I was not privy to it. But nonetheless, when the governor came into the room, he asked those in attendance, anyone have any questions? And they got real quiet. No one responded. So I said, Governor, I have a question. He said, well, John, why don't you wait? You just got here. So he kind of put me in short pants. But as the conversation went on and it came back and I answered my question, I received a lot of support for whatever question I asked. So long story short, what I realized at that point was that politics, as it relates to Black people, was and still is about endorsement largely from the clergy. And so they get that endorsement, they get a vote, get the votes, get elected, but oftentimes with no agenda for the community as a whole, particularly a business agenda. So that got me to thinking that we need to establish a statewide Black chamber to really put forth an agenda around education, around business, around workforce, around health. But business was really the cornerstone. And so, and we still have to deal with that today, where we're seeing people get elected and we're giving them a considerable amount of our vote and no clear agenda to address our systemic problems.
Yep.
But what's different today is that we are in a position to speak truth to power. We are in a position to advocate for a very succinct agenda that will seek to mitigate a host of systemic challenges.
Thank you. So another question I have is, in the world of leadership, you mentioned earlier that if you have weaknesses and you don't address them, they'll actually come back to bite you. So in many instances, it's been experience that I've realized that in the world of leadership, if you don't pass the test, you can't move forward.
Right.
As a leader, were there times where you failed and were able to come back stronger and use resilience?
That's a great question. And I started to mention this earlier when I was talking about high school. So in the 9th grade, I failed English and I was assigned to high school. And that was the most humiliating point of my life because I hope he's not listening, I had relatives that weren't that sharp, in my opinion, and they graduated, right? So that really, really pained me, man, to no end. And so when I arrived at high school, I had to retake English and was further penalized when I would sit and look out the window and see the bus leaving at 2:30 in the afternoon. And I had to stay until 3:30 to take that class. That really challenged me internally to do better because I was better than what I represented for myself. So I got a little more focused on my education and really learned to appreciate the value of education. And I guess through the remainder of my time in high school, I was an honor roll student, but I really understood the difference between having an understanding and not having an understanding. And I was able to reconcile that and become a little more proficient in my learning and also in life.
Okay. So when I think about failures, when I think about change, one word that comes to mind is reinvention. Mm-hmm. So, one of my favorite books is by Robert Greene and 50 Cent. And the name of the book is The 50th Law. Well, it talks a little bit about fearlessness, but it also talks about reinvention. Throughout your career, have you had to reinvent the chamber? Have you had to reinvent yourself? If so, how did that go? And what's been the result of that?
Well, I tell you, I had to do it several times. There's a saying, a winner is a loser that didn't quit. That's one. And in the current environment, we had to pivot from, these interactions at networking events to a virtual platform and do it in such a way that you're still delivering value to your members or to your investors. And I would say that we pivoted very well coming into 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and membership and revenue went up significantly, and we continue to on that trajectory today. Also pivoting from banking after, they wanted me to relocate to Long Island. I chose not to and received a severance package. I started the transportation business, which I ran for 16 years. And then getting involved with the Chamber of Commerce, starting with a regional chamber in Trenton. When I got involved with those guys in '97, all the prominent roles were taken. I became involved as the chaplain. So I would pray at the meetings. And then subsequently, 2 years later, I became the president. And then I had to become a student of the Chamber of Commerce to really understand what it was all about and what it is even up to today.
Okay. This is fascinating, man. I love the different twists and turns and
That's
the
life.
lessons learned. Yeah. So one thing that that stands out, if you think about if you think about what you've been able to do, all right. So if you had to sum up your message about leading and making an impact to students, what would that be?
Understanding first what you want to do. I think that's you have to be clear about what you want to do, and then focus. Be laser focused. You got to put the work in. Reading, writing, reminiscing, reflecting. You cannot do it without being laser focused on being successful. There are many examples all around you. When I learned how to drive a truck, what inspired me and encouraged me, I saw a woman that was probably 5 foot tall driving the largest truck I ever saw. And I said, if she can do it, I can do it as well. So you have to encourage yourself, and there's motivation all around you. There's nothing that you cannot achieve and do if you really have the right mindset and focus and commitment to accomplishing that.
Awesome. I have one more question before we transition into Q&A. So I'd be remiss not to ask this. So you spoke about your ability to use what you had in order to get what you wanted. So you talked about the fact that you served as a chaplain. That wasn't what you initially came in looking to serve as.
Right.
How do you use your gifts as a springboard to get to the next step? And how do you exercise, I guess, that faith or that just belief in self to take that position that might not suit you at that time, but to think forward long-term in order to move forward within your career?
Well, the definition of success is preparation meeting opportunity. And, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And over time, through life's experiences, you're going to develop different skills that's going to prepare you for what's ahead. So I would say, I've always been not afraid to ask a question. If you don't know something, the only way you're going to get the answer is ask. And there's some people that are in the room and they may see someone that has some celebrity about them. And, I'm afraid to ask them my question. They may think my question is dumb. The question is not asked, is the dumb question. You got to always have the courage to ask the question. And then also, they're no better than you. And if you always look at yourself less than, you're going to be less than. You should never marginalize yourself. You're just as good as the next person. They might have put a little more focus, a little more dedication, a little more perseverance to the goal of objective they were seeking to achieve, but you can do the same thing through self-sacrifice. You got to be committed to your success. And again, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And position yourself to be successful through a lot of relationships. You know, reach out to the people that have done what you're looking to do, and they may be able to give you the answer to questions or give you the advice or connect you to some resources that you may need to accomplish your goals.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this this conversation, and now it's time to transition over to our questions. So, Marta, you had a question. Please unmute yourself and just ask your question.
Yes, hello. Yes, I asked when the times when tough for you, what keeps you motivated to keep going and get you where you are now?
Well, one, you know, my faith, you know, I believe through God, all things are possible. For one, that's the foundation of who I am. But moreover, if you want it bad enough, that will enable you to overcome those obstacles. Is how bad you want it. Someone says something about, you know, hard work will obliterate talent, right? You put that work in, the results should come. If you put forth a plan and you test the plan as best you can, and that plan says over and over, the outcomes will be derived. Get the faith, get the courage, and follow that plan through, and you'll get your results.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and go to Sarah. Had a question. Let's see, Sarah Ann. Sarah, please ask your question.
My question was you had mentioned that a leader is a loser that does not quit, and that resonates with me. I'm just curious as what your top skill, or is it faith in God and others, or what major skill or character keeps you going when sometimes life has us, you know, down and out more often than succeeding? Just curious at what keeps you going.
No, I love the question. You know, clearly my faith is a differentiator. There's no question, because to have faith in God and believe that all things are possible is just a quality that I can't really quantify, because things just happen, right? Putting you in the right place with the right people at the right time, identifying resources you didn't know exist, but moreover, believing in yourself, that you can achieve insurmountable goals sometimes could really, really, truly make the difference. But also believing in yourself such that if other people have done this, there's no reason why you can't do this, and not letting people define who you are, who you can be, and how, and your best route to accomplish this. I think those are some of the things that you really have to grapple within yourself and muster the courage. You know, hey, you may not be an A student, but a good B student, a good C student, it won't stop you from getting that degree. So don't let people, even parents sometimes, you know, they may beat down on you for saying, we want you to get all A's, or listen, Mom, Dad, I'm not an A student. I'm a good B student. I'm a good C student. I'm gonna make you proud. I'm gonna be a responsible and accountable human being.
Awesome. So we have another question from El Afrasiabi. Go ahead and shoot.
Hello, John. Thank you for such an inspirational talk. I'm all jazzed up here. So, you know, there's a lot of parallelism between, the biases against women and Blacks. And, when we talk about personal responsibilities about fighting these biases, there's a lot of value in it. It reminds me of Sheryl Sandberg's book on, leaning forward. Now, there's also that element of institutional biases when it comes to race, women, and other groups. So how do you fight that? It must take more than personal perseverance, self-worth, confidence, and so forth. How do you fight the institutional biases and what's embedded in social structures?
Well, I tell you, that's a difficult one, but it's one nonetheless that you have to be very persevering about. I started the conversation with a lot of historical references, and I'm going to use a historical reference here to answer this question. I think about Harriet Tubman. This woman exemplified a lot of courage. So when she was navigating slaves from the South to the North, and she worked with white people, she didn't know if they were going to help her or tricking her to kill her. So you got to have great discernment. Also, your ability as you're looking to navigate some of these barriers and some of these biases, try to align yourself with allies. So relationships, again, matters. And also your ability to demonstrate that if there's an issue of, can you perform the task at hand, examples of how you've gotten that done, or examples of how you would get it done, your approach. I think at the end of the day, when you're faced with that adversity, and I think it's even easier when you're faced with the person that is putting the roadblock, to be able to demonstrate directly to that individual your value proposition. Because if you approach this from an emotional perspective, it's going to be difficult to win the day. If you approach it from efficiency, innovation, if you're talking business, performance, profit margin, bottom line, that's going to be the differentiator. What is your strategy? When I look at my staff, there's 14 of us. There's only 2 men in the organization. So that is my tribute to women. I think women are amazing. James Brown said that it's a man's world, but it's nothing without a woman or a girl. I believe that. And it's up to us to continue to push that messaging throughout society to convert others to believe that a white man or a Black man that's in charge of anything, they didn't get here without a woman. So you may have to remind them of that. You're muted.
Michael had a question?
Am I on?
Yep.
Yes. On a policy issue, I'd be curious about your thoughts and your capacities in different organizations, and of course with the Chamber of Commerce, about the effects of minimum wage increases on neighborhood urban businesses, often founded by Black entrepreneurs, and the jobs they may create for local residents.
So let's go back a couple years, because I'll give you my perspective then and now. As a result of this pandemic, wages are rising everywhere. But let's go back a few years. So when, let's say, the governor and others were pushing for a $15 minimum wage, as an organization, we were opposed to it. And the reason we were opposed to it, at that time, the economy was a little tighter. There's a scarcity of jobs. But if 93% of Black businesses are sole proprietorships, in the state of New Jersey, from a policy perspective, has no incentives to hire minorities and women, those businesses could not create the opportunities to grow and sustain themselves. So I thought that there were some unintended consequences that would adversely impact Black businesses unless there was a way to increase opportunities for them to expand and grow. Moreover, if you look at the retail industry as well as the restaurant industry, like your McDonald's, Burger King, which were typically entry-level jobs, high school students, college students, trying to get that entry-level job. But in a tight marketplace, if you're paying $15, you're going to get someone with a lot more skills competing and thus having an adverse impact on the entry-level job. So we were opposed to it. We were more in favor where the governor finally landed on a phased-in approach. Now, with this pandemic, wages are rising in all sectors. And if those businesses at the retail local level don't have the wherewithal to compete with capital and being able to buy their goods and services at a price point that they can still sell them at a competitive rate, it's going to be some tough sledding. Mute.
Tress, ask your question. Tress Park.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for this section.
Tress,
My
thank you.
question, my question was twofold. You mentioned the times of reinvention and transitioning yourself to do different things. During that time, what was your approach to receive mentorship? And then also, what would be the suggested approach to receive mentorship within the chamber?
So if I use the transportation company as an example, as I said, my dad was in trucking, but he had since moved to the South. But my brother also worked along with him. So that was my mentor. I learned a lot from him about the industry, and from a distance, I learned a lot from my dad. But today, there's a lot of mentorship opportunities available. I know through the chamber, we work very closely with organizations within the city of Trenton to provide mentorship. We have, if someone's interested and has a business and they want some guidance, you can reach out to us at info@AACCNJ.com. At the end of the day, where we can help, we're here to help. The Small Business Development Center, is a great resource that helps small businesses or individuals that have ideas. But I would suggest, you reach out to us and we'll do our best to assist you as best we can. I think we're all, I know my board, they're always trying to find a way to give back. And we're finding more corporations in New Jersey finding ways to give back. So sometimes you just got to raise your hand.
All right, and we just have one last question from Paraz. Paraz, please ask your question.
So when you were talking about the story in high school and how you failed ELA and everything, you're watching the bus leave. I was in the exact same situation in high school with a different class. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons through that has helped me through my life, and I use even during today. And I was just wondering, what kind of lessons did you learn from that? And how are you using that today?
Well, I think life's lessons, they build upon each other, right? That was kind of an experience. Now I'll be 61 next week. So that was, 40 years ago, 45 years ago, and I had that experience. But each experience, although the obstacles may get larger, the foundational principles are pretty much the same. If you overcome a small obstacle, you can do the same with even larger obstacles. It's a matter of mindset. I'll give you a more specific example as it relates to when I graduated Fairleigh Dickinson. I got selected to come to New York for a management trainee program. And there were 12 positions available for the Bowery Savings Bank. And so when I arrived there, they directed me to go into a room to participate. They said, go in the room, we'll call you when your time comes for the interview. I go in the room, and the room is filled with people. There was 151 applicants, and I'm hearing these conversations, folks from, let's say, Rutgers, Harvard, Columbia, Yale, from all over the place. I'm from Trenton. I have a tan suit on, and I have a big afro. So I was somewhat intimidated. I literally went to the corner and challenged myself and said, hey, you are here for one of these jobs. You can't be intimidated. You are prepared to compete for one of these jobs. And by the time I finished kind of motivating and encouraging myself, they called me for an interview. But what they didn't tell me was that I was going to have 6 interviews that day. And so preparation meets opportunity. There's always a bend in the road, but you got to be prepared. I went through those 6 interviews, and I will tell you, my friend, when I got done, I was exhausted. I got on the train, I headed back to Trenton. I didn't care if I got the job or not, but nonetheless, I got a call that evening to tell me that I received one of those 12 positions. I was the only Black person to get one of those jobs. I completed the program, and that was a part of my success today.
Love it, love it, love it. And is it Dean Brown? Dean Brown had a question, and that's gonna be our last question. Go ahead, Dean Brown.
Good afternoon, John. How are you, my friend?
Hey, sir, how are you?
I am well. Actually, I put a comment in the comment section. It wasn't a so much of a question, but more so a comment. I was just saying it's great to see you this morning. I'm a huge fan of the work you're doing with the AACCNJ. I'm happy to be a proud member myself. I'm even more excited about the work you're involved with at RBS. And congrats on all your achievements. It's an honor to now partner with you on two different fronts.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to be here. And again, I'm the same guy from North Trenton that grew up in a row home, one of 7 kids, only one to complete college. Not the fastest in my house. My brothers ran off and left me a lot of times, left me in tears. So, but now I'm the tallest of those jokers, and now they look up to me. So again, it's not where you start in life, it's where you finish. And I'm just so proud to have this opportunity to share my story with you all today. And I'm nothing without God, but I'm nothing without people like you that inspire me, to ask questions, encourage me, challenge me. But now that I'm president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce in New Jersey, I represent families, 13 families that I'm responsible for. I come into work day in and day out to make sure that we have resources, that we have a relevant mission, that people may continue to invest, to continue to partner. That is a big responsibility. But again, I'm the same guy that may have came from similar background that you've come from. You cannot let people define you. I've been at the White House with several presidents. I'm the same guy there that I am here. You got to represent who you are no matter where you are, and you can't let people intimidate you because you come from the same makeup that they do. Success is in our DNA, but you got to acknowledge it. God bless you.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and an inspirational conversation. I'm looking at the comments, inspiring and energizing. Students are saying thank you. So we really do appreciate it. Margaret?
Thank you both so much. I couldn't agree more with those comments about how inspiring and just awesome today was. I'm going to do an abbreviated version of my closing remarks because I know our students are very anxious to get their QR code. So for everyone who's listening, the RBS Signature Leadership Series does take place on Thursdays at noon Eastern, specifically the second Thursdays of each month. For more information, you can always visit our webpage. And up next month is Nick Callisto, who's the CIO of Avery Dennison.